Welcome to the Nerdlore podcast, where we talk stories, theories, and lore. I'm one of your three hosts, Shiny Shoes.
And I'm Crashstarling.
And I'm TheRealSkandle.
So today we're going to take a break from lore stories, and we're going to talk about general lore and kind of ask each other some questions so you guys can get to better know the podcasters. So I will start first with my question. So one thing that really drives me to games and stories, lore and stuff like that, are the villains. And there have been a lot of great villains throughout history. So that's going to be my first question tonight. Who's the best bad guy?
I've got a perfect example, which the first thing that popped in my head of like a really solid bad guy was, did you ever play Twilight Princess, The Legend of Zelda, Twilight Princess?
Mm-hmm.
What was his name? That one guy. You don't remember his name because Ganondorf came and was like, by the way, I'm the bad guy still. But like, you know who I'm talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is his name?
So I have to admit this. I've only played one Zelda game, and it was Breath of the Wild. But I didn't even beat it because a kid kept coming in telling me how to do the puzzles, and I was like, I can't do this right now.
This guy, I picked the wrong podcast.
Nothing against them. It just was never in my wheelhouse. Like,
it's just like someone leaning over your shoulder, like, "Hey, you're doing that Rubik's cube wrong. Let me just help you out with that."
Yeah, I'd walk right into the room, and I'd be like, I'd look at the puzzle and I'd see what going, and I'd look over and this is exactly how you do it. And I'd just be like, all right, man.
Looks like his name was Xanth. Or Xantho.
Xanth.
That's right. So Xanth was one of my favorites because like there was such a strong dynamic between him and Midna, where it was like, since Mr. Shu can, clearly not find the time to actually play some decent Zelda games.
Right? Quality gaming over here.
Top tier streamer.
Listen.
Like Zelda.
Listen. I can't tell you what happened in Zelda, but I will talk to you for 8 hours about what happened in Dragon Age. You know I will.
So, like, just the fact that they introduced Midna, and they were like, oh, she's this important thing, and this guy was trying to usurp her, and then immediately just had that snatched away because Ganondorf's, the true villain. I think he's definitely one of my top, if not top 5, he might be top 10. I'm going to put him at, like, number 6 or 5.
Okay.
He comes to mind first as like a really good villain. I wish he had voice acting.
Okay, I'll give you that.
Does the villain have to be
No,
gaming?
it could be anything.
Okay, so I'm going to go comic book villain. And now, while I hate... I shouldn't say hate. Hate's a strong word. I don't feel like DC comics are that great, right? My favorite villain comes from DC, and what I liked about DC over Marvel was the villains that DC created.
Oh yeah,
right?
their
DC
villains are better.
Were always top tier, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I had to say my favorite villain from DC comic books, I know you're gonna think I'm gonna say Joker, but it's not. I'm gonna go with Scarecrow. I really, really, really liked that guy. I've always been a fan. I don't know, maybe I'm a little what was the word you like to use? Sadistic. I'm a little bit of a sadist, right, Crash?
Yeah.
But when people always ask you what if you could have one superpower, what would it be? I mean, most people are like, I want to be able to fly. I want to be super fast. I want to be invisible, right? Not me, dude. I want to have mind control capabilities. You know why? Because I really don't like a lot of people, right? And I'm not saying that I would be a villain myself, right?
You would be like,
but I would be an anti-hero for sure, right?
I just imagine like old lady like McGillicuddy at the store getting her milk and eggs, and you're just like, well, now you're paralyzed with fear and you peed yourself.
Okay, well let me give you an example because I don't want you guys to think that I'm a complete villain here, right? So I have really bad road rage, right? So I was driving one day. and I went to switch lanes to the left lane, right? And as I did that, I didn't realize that there was a car here. I even turned and looked, but I drive a truck. This car is tiny. I didn't see it, right? So I go over, they honk, I move back over. I'm like, I'm sorry, my bad, right? Well, the passenger is this older lady, and she's like, look at your eyes, right? And I was like, there's a reason I don't have mind control capabilities, because I'd give you a Caesar right now and make your fucking son flip a goddamn car.
I get that. I get that.
Not a villain though. Definitely
No, not a villain. But anyway, so Scarecrow's always been like a big thing for me, just because like the way he did things, like it wasn't. It was almost like anarchist. It wasn't anarchist to the point of like Joker, where it's like I don't want money, I don't want anything like that. I just want chaos. But Scarecrow's like the way he wanted to mess with your mind, like it was so great, dude. Like just hands down one of the greatest written villains I think I've ever read about or watched in the old school Batman cartoons or anything like that. So.
Oh man, I could definitely get into that. And when you're talking about the driving thing, so there was a movie that came out where like a meteor crashes into the Earth and like all these kids get superpowers. And for some reason, there was like a movie for it, and I for some reason keep wanting to say Project X, but I thought that was the one that was about like the house party. But they came out at the same time, and all the kids gained like. The kids that found the meteor, they gained like telekinesis and they learned how to fly with it. They were super strong. Well, I remember that one of the kids became a villain in that. And as the kid became a villain, like the kids were all in a car driving together, and there's this guy in a big truck just tailing them, just honking the horn, and they were like, go around. The guy just wouldn't go around. So the kid's in the back seat and he's got telekinesis. He just like, whoop, and he throws it right off the bridge into like this thing of water, and they're just like, okay. So
that's terrible. That's terrible.
I mean, sometimes you gotta watch those powers. So if I was gonna choose like villains that I hated or just villains that were, I think, great from all time, honestly, if you kind of look at it, I think Emperor Palpatine is probably going to take mine.
Okay. I like
because, like, the entire time, when we're growing up, before Star Wars got remade again, you were like, man, Darth Vader, that dude's rough. And then finally, you get to the end of it, and you're like, okay, well, it's actually the Emperor's fault. And then you go back, and we got the prequels, and you watch it, and you're just like, yo, this dude was manipulated the whole time. And then, spoiler alert, you go into the new ones, you're like, well, you can see where there's the allure to the dark side of the Force, but Emperor Palpatine's what made it dope, and he's flying around shooting lightning bolts out of his hand. When he's fighting Yoda at the Senate, that was awesome. So I think that just like him becoming a villain and the way he played it, he's just one of my favorite villains, because he took someone who could be so powerful and so good and just corrupted him and turned him evil. So I think that was the one for me.
I got one other example. I think if we're going to talk about villains, this guy's more ambiguous, but I feel like he definitely falls into the category of like one of the most, I wouldn't say relatable, but one of the most people can like, sympathize with, and it's Magneto. For sure.
No, well, he's like an anti-villain. It's like weird because he does so much good.
I consider him more of like an ambiguous villain rather than anti-villain.
Yeah,
like he still does some really crazy things, but
he does them because of how he's treated by by humans. You know what I mean? Like,
that's definitely the gray area.
Yeah. So
yeah, I would definitely be on his side.
Yeah, I always feel for him. I'm just like, yo, Magneto, like. They did it. Why'd they shoot a gun at him? He controls metal. This hasn't worked ever, yet you're doing it again. So
one of the coolest things about Magneto, I think, was in the first Star Wars movie when he's in like that plastic jail cell, and he like takes the iron from the blood. What did I say?
Yeah, Star Wars. I got you. I knew what you were saying.
You know what I mean? That's fine. I can't wait to edit this in.
We'll just edit that around. My bad. You were talking about Star Wars. Drugs are bad. So anyway, when he took the iron from the jailers, and used that, like that was just wicked. Like that was just.
So I really hope that eventually Marvel like takes over that Avengers thing and then actually like makes great X-Men movies, like with brings them in there, because Storm, like, she is so strong, and people don't realize that, like, she can pull the water out of your body. That's how.
Right.
I am hopeful for an X-Men movie that is good. I'm not saying I've watched every one of them in theaters. I won't lie to you. I watched every single one in theaters just because I think the story with X-Men is amazing. But oh god, I just want a really good one.
Can I just ask a question here real quick?
Yeah.
I know it's supposed to be your turn.
No, you're good.
But because I wasn't prepared for this because somebody who I work with didn't tell me what I needed to do to prepare for this podcast. One of my questions I'd like to ask is, since we're on the subject of X-Men, who is your favorite X-Men?
All right, so my favorite X-Men, I'm going to go first, Sean, because I've already got the answer to this. I love Jean Grey because I think the Phoenix is one of the most amazing characters ever put into anything, really. Kind of side story, I've always grown up and, like, we had the X-Men going on. It's on Disney Plus again, and I'm going to slam through that as soon as I can. Well, there was a friend of mine, his son, like, started watching some streams and stuff like that, and he would come through. So I sent him some swag, like I sent him some glasses and some other stuff that I had, and he sent me back letters and stuff like that. So he sent me back the letter, and he was telling me about his favorite superhero and villain, and he was like, who do you like as superhero and villain? So I was like, Jill. That's the wife. I was like, we went up to V-Stock. I bought the first 2 seasons of X-Men, because in the second season is when you get the Phoenix. Mm-hmm. I put them in a thing, and I wrote them this whole letter. I'm like, listen, you need to watch all these. The second season when Phoenix will come. That's my favorite X-Men villain. And then later on, you will get to watch more, and you'll see why she's my favorite superhero character as well as it goes through. So I sent that to him, pushed it out. Now, there have been so many changes to the way the Phoenix Force, really works and how she comes back and everything like that. But it's hard for me to say I like anyone more than her, especially because I really relate to her powers of, like, telepathy and telekinesis. If I was an X-Men, those are the powers that I would want. But just so good. Especially.
Before you answer it, Crash, I do want to say when you do watch the X-Men on Disney Plus, the first 2 seasons are in order. The 3rd through 5th season, there are some that are out of order. So I suggest, like, Google searching it, or you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And it's not Disney Plus's fault. The way that back then, the way they had to put them out was so fast that, and you can watch them the way they have it, and it would still make sense. But they're definitely not in the correct order on Disney Plus. So anyway, Crashed. X-Men fan? If so, favorite one?
I never actually grew up watching X-Men. Like, I knew the animated series was top tier, and I, like, recognize it when I hear it, like, the theme. Yes, exactly. Like,
super good.
I'd heard it before, but I'd never been like, oh, that's X-Men. I'd been like, I just know it. But I think my favorite, just from, like, the few things that I've read online, it's probably, I think his name is Beast.
The blue guy?
Yeah, the blue guy. Yeah, I really like his character. I really like the fact that even though, like, I think he, like, was born normal and then turned and transformed into this form, and then was like, well, instead of becoming a villain, I know specifically you're not a big man of faith, but I like the fact that this character went, I have now been almost cursed with this visage of a devil, but instead of taking that and turning it into energy of, like, turning it into negative energy and negative impacting people, he's just like, well, I've always been this person. I've always been a person of faith, and I'm going to continue to being a person of faith. And I really find that, like, that strong resolve of character, regardless of whatever he believes in. Because he could follow even Buddha, and I'd just be like, he resolved to be this person regardless of what he looked like.
You might be talking about Nightcrawler.
That's
Nightcrawler's much more with faith and everything else like that. The guy that he's blue too, though. I get it.
I think
and he teleports around and everything.
Never watched it.
Also,
things on my list.
Yeah, really cool character, really cool powers. What about you, Scout?
Well, when I played the, I'm going to age myself here. Yes, okay, boomer. I played the arcade game, the X-Men.
Great
I don't know
game
if you
though.
guys ever played that.
I think that
Uh,
came on the Xbox Marketplace. To be honest with you, I'm pretty sure it
Did
came
it?
as like as one of the old renewed titles. I think it did. Somebody check that.
That one and The Simpsons were both like really big
Oh yeah.
arcade games. Anyway, so um, I would play Nightcrawler in that game just because his ult would push him across the room, so you could clear a bunch of enemies at one time. So it was really good to be him. But I did like Nightcrawler a lot. I really do. I like his. I think the movie made him seem. What I liked about the movie is they gave him that. Um, I'm not quite sure where I am. I want to do good, but I don't know how to do. You know, what I mean? I
Mhm.
don't know how to be the good guy because I don't really know what the hell I am. They did that really well. But I'm going to say this is a very unpopular opinion, and I know he didn't really do anything special, but I really liked Gambit.
A lot of people really like
I,
Gambit. I wish he played a bigger role in the movies, but he doesn't. It's,
I don't know if it's because and maybe this might be the reason that I became such an avid poker player. I don't know if it's because of Gambit growing up
Mhm.
or what it was, but like I just always thought that was cool to be able to take. I've always been interested in watching people who can take playing cards and like slice open a watermelon with
Oh
it,
yeah, yeah.
and like that stuff's always been. And then like whenever he didn't have it, he was like an amazing bow staff. You know, he could fight with his
Mhm.
staff as well. Like I just really liked him,
Yeah.
and the Cajun thing was whatever. I don't think they really did a very good Cajun accent in the cartoons. After rewatching the cartoons on Disney Plus, his that's not Cajun. I'm sorry, he tried really hard, but that's like the whitest Cajun voice you could have ever used.
Yeah.
But I just
That's
I
like
don't
that
know what it
dollar
was
store
about.
Cajun spice just sprinkled on the
Yeah,
gambit.
Ooh, this is
yeah.
good.
Like if you're gonna call somebody it's I don't know, just watch the first episode and you'll understand what I'm talking about. It's a terrible accent, but I don't know what it was about him. I like Gambit. So
That's fair. I think it's like, well, like the stuff that, from what I remember, Gambit does is like really rooted in things that people can do. Like
Yeah,
people can throw playing cards and slice watermelons, and people can do
his
those
yeah,
things.
and his what was his ability? He could store and then project kinetic energy. If
yeah,
I'm trying to remember, but like man, his abilities are pretty cool. And then there's a lot of X-Men comics, and there's a lot of X-Men comics like where he goes into the future and he becomes like an uber powerful mutant. There's some that not so much that way, but like he's a pretty neat character, to be honest with you. So
I'm just
that's
glad
a good
nobody
person.
picked a reality bender. If any of you picked a reality bender, I'm sorry, but you're an edgelord.
Reality. Well, Phoenix can do whatever she wants, pretty much.
that's very true.
You
That's
know,
very
she's
true.
got
She's
the.
But
very
I'm
powerful.
talking about the ones that just think like, oh, I wish the universe had less snakes, and then all the snakes are gone.
I can
That's just
stand
edgelord
behind
material.
that though. I don't like snakes.
The
Aw.
snakes. We're not going to get into the snake debate.
I don't like spiders.
Oh, I hate spiders too.
No, we're not. No, we can't get into this because I will stand for spiders.
Listen,
I will fucking-
you should see this guy, dude. We were at work and we were trying to clean up this room we were in, this office that we were trying to get all set up. And as we're cleaning things, I'm working in this area that hasn't really been touched in a long time. And I picked up this stack of keyboards to throw away. And when I picked them up, there were 3. I'm talking ginormous spiders.
I'm out.
That like started like they like sprinted like towards the hole that was in the thing, and I was like ah! And I screamed like a little girl, and I threw the keyboards. Like I was just like ah! And then I backed up, and I was like nah, I'm done. I'm not cleaning here anymore.
Hard pass. That's to be a hard pass. That's
Yeah.
good. I don't blame you. I do the same thing. I just do not. I do not do well with spiders. All right.
I like
So
spiders, just not venomous ones. I've got my question too, by the way. If we
what
want
is
to-
it? Let's get it.
Okay, so since we've established before the podcast that we've all played D&D, so I want you to pick. I think we've done this one before, but I'm not sure. Pick your favorite game setting, comic setting. Like pick your favorite setting out of like any nerd culture. Turn it into a D&D game, and then try to imagine a character for it.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, I know. I hit you with the big ones. And to give you guys time, I can throw out mine.
Yeah,
Okay.
give us
Do
an
it.
example because I feel like this is an overwhelming question that I needed weeks to prepare for.
Okay, so D&D 5e has a type of monk that basically is a spellcaster. And I would try to make like a specialized bender from the Avatar: The Last Airbender series. If you know anything about that class, for any D&D players out there, it's horribly underpowered. Like, it is so hard to actually do anything with this class. But I would want to build like probably an earthbender or an airbender, because I feel like those would be the most fun to play. Like, it'd be like, oh, I'm a firebender. I'm like, why didn't you just play a wizard? Or you'd be, a waterbender, and why didn't you just play a wizard or a sorcerer? But I feel like an earth or an airbender would be the most fun. And that's what I would try to base it around, was just like, just chucking giant rocks at boys. That's all I want to do, is just throw rocks at boys. You just see an ice dragon, you're like, well, do what I always do, chuck a rock.
So kind of with that, I prefer, so I played D&D, played a lot of the different variants, but I prefer Pathfinder just a bit over D&D, only because I find it's a lot more streamlined and more combat oriented, and when you get new players, it's a lot easier to give them that because they like the combat parts and they're still learning how to persuade people in the other parts. There is a monk in Pathfinder that I play as that is the Monk of the Four Winds, and it's pretty much a bender, but you get access to, you could choose access to all the powers so you can get all of them, but you're completely underpowered at the end of the game because you only have like first level spells, or not spells, but first level abilities. But you could go into it. One of them is the electricity one, and I like to spec into that one because I don't know, for some reason, like if I was going to choose an element that I would have the power of, I think electricity is neat. But if I was going to put D&D in a setting that I really, really would love to play D&D in, I would say Dragon Age, but again, Dragon Age is D&D, so that's, it's already, it already is. It already is. To kind of harp back to, like, maybe previous conversations, I think D&D in either the Star Wars universe or the Naruto universe, I think D&D would be great in those, because you can be like, your party can have a bunch of different things and they've all got different tasks. Like your Jedi is your basic melee character, tank. Your bounty hunters give you range. Same thing with Naruto. You just, you make your ninja, and
I just would love to play a Naruto D&D campaign, because then like Shuriken and Kunai would actually be useful for us.
So last Saturday we were playing D&D, and there was a guy and he played as a ninja because he loves Naruto, and he's like, I'm gonna be Naruto. He named his character Guts from Berserk, and his god,
God.
And I was like, you guys,
such an edgelord.
He's a great guy. And his god is Naruto, because I let him choose their deity because I didn't really care, and he chose Naruto as his god. And they have to fight all these spiders. Of course they're spiders, and everybody else is like rangers in the group, and he chose one of the few melee characters, so they're all fighting with bows and stuff. And I was like, okay, what do you want to do with your turn? He's like, I throw one shuriken. I was like, all right, what is that, a 1d2? It's like, yes, if I hit. I was like, all right, roll them up, boys.
Don't even roll damage.
Yeah,
you do one.
I was like, yeah, I'll take it, whatever. I was like, if you crit, we'll do something fun.
I got a crit. I do 3 damage.
This is such a hard question for me to answer, because maybe this is a reason that I'm so dark on the mind control thing. But like most of the things that I'm interested in are dark. Like I've been on a Diablo kick for years
cool, though.
now. Like I played the original one when I was young on the PlayStation 1, and the second one, obviously, I played even through basic training. I played the second one, but dude, I don't know, because that game is, what I mean? Like, how do I put a D&D character in Diablo when that's, they're Nephilim, so they're not actually. It's just, but like even like things that I'm interested in, like I've always been more interested in, demons in hell than I was about angels in heaven. And I just, it's a tough question
to
answer.
Send them through Dante's Inferno. Let them go all
yeah,
9 levels,
that was
dude.
hands down. If I were to rank video games, like Dante's Inferno, yeah, maybe it was a quote unquote rip off of the God of War platform as far as leveling up skills and spamming buttons whenever you needed to dodge things. That's a tough one. Just because most of the games and stuff I play all have those bases behind them. But even whenever I played D&D, I always chose the cleric. I don't know what it was about it, but I couldn't. Maybe it was based on having this deep connection with an immortal, or a god or a goddess or whatever. But I don't think I can answer that question and not make it seem
like I want to play
cheesy.
a cleric.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like maybe it would have been fun to play a cleric in biblical times when Jesus was showing all his magic tricks and miracles. Then I could be like, watch what I can do.
You thought that was great?
You're trying to upstage.
Right? That's what I would do. I would try to upstage Jesus. Look what I can do.
You think that's cool? I've got a mace.
Right?
You just like Jesus makes like the bread and the fish last for like 1,000 people. You're like, well, I can create food and water too. That's a level 1 spell.
Right?
Yeah, those.
The 10 plagues. What are you talking about? I can show you 10 of those in a day.
Yeah. Like the locusts start swarming and you cast wind wand. You're like, well, what are they gonna do?
Now, do you believe in me, or did I drop the?
A really good article I was reading, and this will be maybe a different one. We'll talk about some lore or theories and a different thing. I read an article that scientifically explained all the plagues.
Yeah, it was a volcano.
Yeah, the volcano erupting, and I was reading the whole thing about it, and it was really, really, really good stuff. But we can talk about that in a different one.
Yeah, we should talk about that later, because that's a whole other podcast. Yeah. Sean has to hear me talk about these kind of things all day at work. So.
I bet he loves
What's fun? My favorite thing is to bring up the biblical flood and how it's real. How it's a real cataclysmic event. Mm-hmm. And people don't believe it because it can't imagine the whole fucking world flooding.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't the whole world; it was that area. But whatever.
Well, that's what I mean. Is that like every region has a flood story, though.
No, it's true.
We can talk.
Let's because that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
Because there's like some cool conspiracy theories about biblical stuff. Anyway, that I would love to. A whole nother podcast.
Oh yeah. Okay, so my next one.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of you can't choose Pokemon.
Oh darn it!
I'm out. Peace. Sorry, got my boys backing me up. Can't just.
Either video games, TV shows, movies, an animal. Choose your favorite animal from one of those. Yeah, that's why you
can't choose Pokemon.
Can't choose Pokemon because that's an easy answer. Because I would choose a Pokemon as well. I'd go with Arcanine, but
I came here to have fun, and honestly, I'm feeling so attacked right now. I wonder what I would choose for a Pokemon that I'd really want to be my companion.
For an animal. I really need to turn my sleep off. It keeps going. My computer keeps going to sleep on me.
That happens a lot. So, I guess I can start. So, if I was going to choose an animal for it, so I think I would just go, like, when we look at cryptozoology and stuff like that, I think the thought behind like a phoenix is really neat. We could choose any of them, the one from Harry Potter or anything. And I know it sounds weird because I chose Phoenix as my favorite X-Men, but I think
it's just making sense now.
Yeah, it all comes together. I think so. What really gets me about like the lore around Phoenix and stuff is because they die, and then from their ashes, their young is born. So basically, they die and then raise a new child from their death, basically. And I've always thought that's a really neat way for kind of people to understand that mythical creature, because it's just a weird thing. It's something that you don't see in a lot of places, whereas death creates a new life and stuff like that. I just think it's really neat to go into those type of topics.
Is that like the light at the end of the tunnel whenever you die is actually you being birthed into another life?
Oh, that'd be a fun thing to talk about too. Who knows there?
My favorite animal, dude. Okay, I was almost slipped up. So my favorite animal of all time, and it's been like this since I was a little kid, was the saber-tooth tiger.
Saber-tooth tiger.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was about it. I don't know if it was the tusks or the fact that its roar was like I used to do it in the shower all the time whenever I was like, because my mom used to have this tape that had like different dinosaur noises that they believed the dinosaurs made. So like, the Tyrannosaurus Rex had its roar and the raptor had its roar, and the saber-tooth tiger was always like so like I would be in the shower and that's all I would do in the shower. I'd be like
I just imagine your mom's at like a PTA meeting and all the like, my son won the spelling bee. Well, my son makes saber-tooth noises in the bathroom.
So yeah, dude, definitely saber-tooth tiger. That's definitely mine.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
I was gonna say mine would be a griffin because
Ooh,
they're
okay.
like they're. I mean, it's like the most basic. Like a basic griffins are like the horse girl. Like me liking a griffin's like little girls like horses. It's really basic. Like of course you like a fuck. It's a griffin.
It's a eagle and a lion and.
My actual first choice was like one of the dragon birds from Avatar, but then I thought like, oh, I have to connect my hair with them, and I was like, well,
yeah, Doom.
I was like, I have like 2 patches of hair, and I don't think I'd want to put my beard in there.
It plugs right into your nose there, dude. It's going.
If I keep explaining this, I'm gonna get banned from the zoo. So,
no, that's a good one. That's a good one. All right, cool.
All right, I've got one more that's hopefully not as in depth. And it has to do with like, okay, between like when you pick a game that you want to play, or when you're coming back to a game, like the biggest factor for you, is it the first experience or is it the replayability that makes the game the most fun to you? So for me, I love being able to replay a game. I love when I'm able to like whenever, especially if you can add mods. Like when I add mods to Pokemon, it's way more enjoyable for me because I don't know what to expect, and I'm still getting the experience of playing a Pokemon game. Mm-hmm. So replayability is a much bigger factor than the first experience.
Well, I get that.
What about you, Shiny Shoes?
So I think for me, I really do like replayability in games, but I think that first story or the first time I play it has to get me hooked into it. So if I would have played through Dragon Age the first time and I wouldn't have fallen in love with the characters or really learned about the world or really embraced it, if I would have just tried to speed run through it to get to the end and then like all the twists didn't really matter to me because I skipped the dialogue, there's a real good chance I wouldn't go back. But because I got hooked the first time and you have to make all these decisions and you do all this, and then I was like, I beat the game and I was like, oh no, well, what if I would have done this differently or what I would have done this differently? So I think the story that first time I play through it has to be amazing, and that will determine if I replay a game or not. Okay. So like Mass Effect, I beat the first Mass Effect, and when I bought the first Mass Effect when it came out, day it released. And I was excited because, my friends were like, yeah, this is going to be an awesome game. So I bought it, and I was like, okay, cool. And then I played it for like 20 minutes, and I was like, this is space stuff. This isn't really for me. I put it down. I came back to it as like a 24-year-old. So that was like 6 years ago. Came back to it, and I literally sat down and I started playing it. And then by the end of the month, I had beaten all 3. Because I was like, well, this story is great. I love it. I don't talk about the ending of 3, but it was great. I loved it. So
I think what like really ruined the experience is League of Legends, because literally I just played that nonstop for like 5 years, and now anytime I play a game, I'm just like, I want to be able to replay this game, not just play this game.
Dude, that's same with Halo.
Yeah.
I think the industry has kind of caught on to the idea of replaying games, and I think that's why you see a lot of games coming out with like depending on your choices, this happens. Depending on this choice, this happens, so that you can go back through the game and make different choices and see the game play out a different way, right? But aside from that, I think the reason that I was such a fan of like turn-based role-playing games and things like that growing up was the story, right? Like if there's a reason you're there and the story progresses and there's like crazy twists and turns that may happen, or you know what I mean, like those are things that you want to experience again. Maybe not like I'm going to replay this right after I beat it, but if you come back to it a year or two later, you're like, I remember this. But that being said, I also think something that triggers the the desire to replay a game is the memories you make when you play it, right? I'll give you an example, right? Chrono Trigger. This game was, I don't know if you guys ever played it,
Yeah.
I've
but
heard many good things, but never.
this game is still like worth, it's on the Super Nintendo, and this game is still worth like $30 if you have it. Like it's I mean it's a great game,
Yeah.
right? But the reason that I wanted to come back and play that game was as I was playing it again, I was remembering sitting there with like my buddy at his house and what we did and what we experienced and how we figured things out. You'll be playing, you were like, oh dude, I remember this fight because Paul and I had to do this, or you know what I mean? It's the same way with like the Resident Evil games, playing those with your friends in the dark at your house, and then you replay it and you're like, oh man, this used to scare the crap out of me. Like I really think replayability doesn't necessarily have much to do with the game itself, but it's like the environment and the memories and the things that you have from playing that game makes you want to come back and play them again.
Yeah,
But go ahead.
I agree like 100%. So like there's two games like you were talking about bringing to mind. So Chrono Trigger was amazing. There's a game on PlayStation called Legend of Legaia, and that was like my first real introduction to a PlayStation RPG. Like when they first started rendering blocks and making 3D models, and going back, like the graphics were horrible, but I remember thinking, I'm like, these graphics are awesome. And
Right.
I still to this day remember like I was a kid and I couldn't beat this boss and I couldn't figure out how to do it. It was a very simple boss. I just needed to level up more, but I was too young to understand that. So I remember finally I beat it one day, and then I go through the story, and I'm like, man, I'm awesome. I beat this boss, and I beat a bunch of bosses after that, and there are a bunch of hard fights. And you get to a point in the game where you find like one of the characters' family members. Pretty much, you've been spending this whole time in the game trying to find their family. You get there, and you find it, well, dead. And you're like, I remember getting to the top of the mountain, I'm like, what? I've been spending all this time to find these people, and then like Resident Evil, everybody, a lot of people harp on Resident Evil 5 because it becomes like, and the ending was a little silly where, you know, Chris was punching a boulder into a volcano. That's a little silly, I get it. But I remember playing it with my friend, and we're both in the same room, two TVs set up, same room, playing the game together. And like, I just remember how fun it was. Like, you get swarmed by zombies, like, hey, I'm dying over here, and be like, oh, well, you suck. I've got ammo, I'm not giving you any, so I just remember that experience, and still to this day, like, anytime I think of that game, I'm always like, oh, I wonder what my buddy's doing. I wonder if he wants to play that again. Because it was just good. It was fun to play together. So I agree.
I think one thing that might have gotten lost here was they're the like opposite ends of the spectrum, right? Like if you play through a game and you're just like, I just want to play this game again because of the gameplay. Like I'm talking like a Dark Souls 3 or like a Super Mario style, where the story is not directly presented to you. There's no dialogue explaining why you're doing these things.
Okay.
You have an objective in your mind. Jump on the enemies to save the princess. Kill all the big bad things before they kill you. And then that like there's not much explained to you. It's the fact of this is difficult, and you can then master the difficulty. That is the experience that I find most entertaining.
Yeah. And I know you heard me talk about, maybe you might have heard me talk about this on Sunday, but I was talking about how, like, the reason why I'm so drawn into, like, PvP shooters, the shooter aspect around it, is because they are a puzzle, and it is a puzzle with a difficulty level that can't be made by game developers, because humans think. So, like, when you're playing games, you hear somebody say, oh, there's a camper. I'll just go kill him real quick. the computer, it's hard for it to think that way. Like, oh, he's camping there. I can't go around this way. I have to go this way, then this way, and then go in there. That's what brings replayability. It isn't like, well, the physics got to be good. Like, it's got to be a good shooter and everything like that. But are the people that are playing it, are they presenting a challenge in itself? Are they doing it so that, hey, I am challenged by playing you, so it's hard? I get what you're saying.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll go. I was gonna say, on that note, is it better as an experience to then ruffle stomp your competition, or to have them be like neck and neck where you're just like down to the wire, skill versus skill? Which is better for you two?
Personally, I like a challenge. While it is, so I'm well. Since you've mentioned League, I'll just use this one. I am not a challenger diamond level player at League of Legends, right? But I don't find it fun. My friends do, but I don't. I don't find it fun to create a new account and try to keep it in a low elo to completely destroy somebody because one, it doesn't make me feel good to beat somebody who obviously doesn't have a grasp on the game as much as I do, right? Like just as League is like when you're in Iron, they don't position correctly, right? So like it's not hard to pick off the carry or you know what I mean? Like those it's not fun for me to do that. Now, if they're in my elo and I see that and I punish that, that makes me feel good because they're supposed to be at my level.
Yeah.
So, I'm using League only because it's the thing that I think all of us have played some sort of MOBA before.
I play a lot of Smite. I played a lot of
Okay,
Smite.
yeah, Osiris in the jungle, baby. So, so it we've talked about this before, where before for many seasons I was stuck in silver and couldn't get out of it, and then I started playing with friends and we started climbing into gold and once I got to gold and then to high gold, low plat, and even into the diamond elo, the game changed 100%. Like the game was faster. There wasn't much downtime. If you made a simple mistake of being mispositioned, you got punished for it. If you like that to me is fun because I learn from it. Like I can say, all right, this happened because I did this, so I need to make sure that doesn't happen. And then when the situation happens again, it makes my brain continually work. I don't know if anybody else is like that, but like I get bored easily. So having that constant thinking and constant mind game and that challenge. We'll take first person shooters for example, right? I know this guy has thrown a grenade in the house and he's shooting, but he constantly moves to the right and then he'll go left and he'll go right. I know that if I aim that direction or if I mock this, so if I mimic it so that if I come out the back door I can come up behind him and he won't notice because he's going to be going to the right. Like those things, like just the mind game of it, I would much rather than be on par or better than to be way below.
I mean, like, I agree 100% with that. Like, so playing Halo, the reason why we would just sit in ranked all night, because you were playing people who were close to your skill level. Whereas, like you're saying, if I would create a new count and then go in, so back in the day, Halo used to have a really weird leveling mechanic where the more games you played, the less you would gain experience and level up. So you have me who's at like 6,000, 7,000 games, and I'm sitting there as a brigadier because I can't get to general because I've played 4,000 ranked matches and every win counts for nothing for me. But then you have new players and they get 16, 17 wins and they go to 50 general because they don't have that kind of split going on. But you're playing against those people, and I'd go and play with my friends because they're like, hey, I want to get on. And I'm up there, and I'm like level, 47, 48, getting close to the general level. And they're over there at like level 17 and 20, and that's the best they can do. That is their limit, and we're playing with them, so I'm getting matched down. And you're playing people that are running out in the open, don't know where the power weapons are. They get into the vehicles and just do stupid stuff in them, whereas you get into like that brigadier level. If your team doesn't have the sniper, you can't come out of cover because someone's going to just pop your head off. Or if you spawn upstairs, if you don't understand how to throw a grenade to hit the guy downstairs below you, your team might lose that team fight to them because you have to now get down to them. Like, I can't tell you how long we spent just with friends learning how to bounce grenades off of walls to put them through windows into other buildings. Like
you practice?
Yeah, like we practice that. We're like, hey, this spot right here, that's where that grenade has to hit to bounce there, then down into there. And there was a mode where we literally practiced using sticky grenades. You could only kill your opponents by sticking them 3 times in a row. And we were out in the middle of a field, and you just... So, like, I remember doing this
like dodgeball.
Yeah, I remember, and that was fun to me because I was like, man, I want to master this skill. And I can't tell you how many times, like, I'd get hate mail when we'd be playing ranked, like, you never missed a sticky shot. And I'm like, that's because I practiced it. And they're like, I didn't even know grenades could come in through the window that way. Because I practiced it. And that's what's fun to me, just boop, 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 boop. You kill somebody in there, and they're like, how did he even get a grenade in here? So that is fun, but just jumping in there and just destroying kids in Halo, not gonna say it doesn't feel good every once in a while. Like, you're like, hey,
having a bad day.
hey, we are rolling these kids, boys, got them. But just over and over again, you get bored of doing it, and like leveling in games is really important. And there's not a lot of games that do a very good system of leveling. I wish there were more.
Can I just add one more thing real quick, Crash?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off here.
Yeah, go for it.
I also don't like to do it because we've all been there. We've all been that person who got into a game against a Smurf. And while I talk so much crap about League and I say I'm not going to play anymore, I still find myself going back to it. Like, it's just whatever. And I would hate to make somebody not want to play a game because I'm an ass. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I don't
take away the fun by having your own fun. You just want to.
Now, if you're in my right, if you're in that ELO bracket, if you're in my bracket and I destroy you, it's also the same reason I don't like. There are some players who will type in all chat and talk smack the entire game.
Yeah,
I don't do that either, especially if I'm winning, because obviously you already know, right?
Yeah.
Like, I love sports. I played baseball my entire life. I played basketball and football. Baseball was always my thing, but I get that trash talking is part of the game, and I understand that you want to have a mental game with your opponent, but there's a difference between me saying, hey, I'm better than you at the start of the game and showing them that you're better than they are, than when you continually kill them because they obviously don't have the same grasp of the game as you do. And not only are you breaking them down in the game, you're now doing it mentally on top to where they just don't want to play. I don't ever want to do that to somebody.
Yeah.
Maybe that's another reason I don't like.
I get it. And you feel bad in that same sports thing. I remember we played a team in football and we destroyed this team. It was literally 70-0. The paper even said we were running up the scoreboard. They took all of the starters. We were all out by halftime. They took all the starters out, and our JV was running up the score. You can't tell them to just go down. Like, that's not sportsmanship. It had a running clock. But I remember I was sitting there, and we had gone up by 3 touchdowns like that. I was like, boom, boom, boom. And then we return a kickoff for a touchdown. I was like, we are up 4 right now. And then I remember get down in my stance, and I played on the O-line, then played linebacker on the other side. And I got down my stance, and the kid across from me, he had went to one of the training camps we went to. And I remember talking to him at the training camp. I was like, hey, you keep staring at the hole you're going to go in, which makes you very easy to block because I just wash you down into that hole. And he was like, and he was still doing it when we got there. And I remember before they even pulled me out, I told him, I was like, hey, we talked in camp. Remember we were going over it. I was like, you're still staring at the hole. You need to not do that.
You tried to karate trainer this guy into stop staring.
He had to. I mean, but it was easy for me to just watch because he was making a bad decision. I want to be like, hey, you shouldn't do this. I don't gain anything from you being poor because I don't get better from it.
Right.
Like, I'm not getting...
Exactly.
I'm not getting
that
better.
That point right there you made was exactly why I like the same with Scandal, but I like whenever you get versus the super high level player, I like refighting. I like fighting them or facing them until my fingers bleed. Like
Yeah.
in League, I loved playing against Diamond people because when I beat them, that means
You're learning.
Or if I was learning. That's my favorite part was. And then in like Smash Bros, anytime I could beat my buddy Scar, which has only been twice out of the 150 matches we've had, I beat him twice. One time because I literally pulled a Spider-Man where I made him laugh so much he couldn't hold his controller. And I took that W. I was like, I'm adding that to the record.
Every time.
But yeah, I was like, well, we take those. But every other time, you know, he'd go with me after the match and be like, here's what you did wrong. And it was just, I love facing the insurmountable mountain. That's my favorite thing to do in a competitive video game because if I can see an end of the road, because ADHD is a problem. So if I can see an end game and I can see myself getting to that end game, I will stop at nothing to beat that person.
I felt bad because I know the kid was a sophomore and I was a senior. So, one, I was already like double this kid's size. But I will tell you, so I graduated, then 3 years later, that team came back and they destroyed our team. Like, literally stomped them into the ground.
You got the message.
I know. I always just thought to myself, I was like, man, I wonder if that kid's still playing. And he just got there, like, he gets off the bus and he's just like, he doesn't look at anything anymore. He's just automatically aware of his surroundings. And he doesn't even stare. He's like, I'm that good now. You taught me. So
did you just see that guy in the line? He's just like turned around looking at something else. You're like, where is he going?
Yeah, he has a blindfold on, bird boxing it up. He tackles by smell, boys.
Did you hear what happened after the football game in Joliet? So Sean and I work at a school, and our high school football team is in the Final Four for state championship.
Oh wow!
Which is already like crazy, right?
Yeah.
But then to also understand that not more than half of our school district are military kids who leave every 2 to 3 years makes it even crazier that they were able to get these kids ready. That's besides the point. That's not what I'm trying to bring up. So in the Elite Eight game, they went and played this team called Joliet Catholic, right? They're a Catholic school in Joliet, Illinois. I don't know if you know where that is, but it's up by Chicago.
Okay.
So that should give you an indication on how good this team is, right? They were state champions last year. Like they're a private school, so they recruit. And that's just an assumption. I probably shouldn't say that because they may not.
Most of them do.
Most of them do, right? So anyway, our school is Muscuda, and they ended up winning the game. I think it was 21-14 is what they won the game by. But the reason I bring this up is you talking to this kid about showing what his problem was, what his downside was in the game. They apparently Sean doesn't want to listen to me anymore. The star player on their team after the game was over came onto the bus for Muscuda and was like, "Hey, I just want to congratulate you guys on winning. Here's a few things that you should know about the next games you're about to play.
Oh,
here's some tips to beat these guys, and kind of what to look for." And then either I can't remember if they said it was the coach or the athletic director then came on the bus and gave our school athletes catered food.
Oh, that's awesome.
To take home, because that's a 5-hour drive.
Oh yeah.
After a football game, you know what I mean? It was like just whenever you said that, it was like that's the kind of sportsmanship.
That's spirit and just bringing everybody together. That's what it should be.
Right, and Sean doesn't care. He didn't want to hear that story, so
football. I was like, perfect, pee break.
Anyway, sorry.
No, that's good. That's good. I mean, good stuff. So I think that runs us through all of our questions. Okay.
Yeah, I only had one.
No, you're good. You're good. So what we'll do is in the comments down below, if you guys if you have answers to these questions, who's your favorite bad guy, your favorite TV show, who's your favorite X-Men, what place would you like to play D&D, and what brings you back to a game? Let us know in the comments. We will have another episode up for you soon, and this has been the Nerdlore Podcast. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.